In this Elden Ring video, I'm going to show you my level 125 Holy Paladin build that is primarily focused on in-game PvE solo and co-op content. This build allows the player to guard against some of the strongest attacks in the game and retaliate with powerful counters. Additionally, this build offers a kit that can buff damage and provide heals to yourself and the party. Before we jump in, if you would take a moment and click the like and subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. These videos do take considerable time to make, and by showing your support, you help promote Elden Ring content on the platform. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoy the video. The first weapon we'll be looking at is the Miquellan Knight Sword. This weapon falls into the Straight Sword class type and requires 11 strength, 11 dexterity, and 16 faith in order to properly wield. This weapon has a D-scaling in strength, dexterity, and faith. This weapon's Ash of War is called Sacred Blade. This ability fires off a golden projectile and buffs the blade with holy damage. This weapon can be found atop a bell tower near the prayer room site of Grace in the Haligtree. I like this weapon for the speed of its moveset and its ability to bring ranged attacks to the build for both idle and approaching enemies. Up next we have the Heavy Iron Greatsword. This weapon falls into the Greatsword class type and requires 18 strength and 10 dexterity in order to properly wield. Through heavy infusement, this weapon has an A scaling in strength. The Ash of War I chose for this weapon is called Sword Dance. This ability performs a series of upward spinning slashes, and you are able to input a follow-up attack for a downward slash. I like this ability for its inherent hyper armor. Most non-boss enemies in the game will not be able to interrupt this attack once initiated. This weapon can be farmed from the Misbegotten Warrior, however this weapon is a rare drop. Taking a look at our left hand, we have the Haligtree Crest Greatshield. This shield falls into the Greatshield class type and requires 36 strength in order to properly wield. This shield offers 100% physical damage negation along with excellent damage negation from magic, fire, lightning, and holy attacks. For me, this shield really sells the Holy Paladin look and is the bread and butter of how this build operates. This shield has no skill listed for its Ash of War, allowing us to use skills from our right hand ornament without two-handing our swords. This allows for a much smoother flow of combat between our blocks, guard counters, and right hand Ashes of War. This shield has a 4% base chance to drop and can only be farmed from one specific Haligtree Knight in the game. He is located up the elevator from the Haligtree root site of Grace in the graveyard beside the church. All other Haligtree Knights in the game, regardless if they wield the shield, will not drop it. The rarity of this shield alone was incentive for me to make the build, as not many other players would be using this in co-op. Lastly, we have the Clawmark Seal. This weapon falls into the Sacred Seal class type and requires 4 strength and 10 faith in order to properly wield. This weapon scales with a B in both strength and faith, working in synergy with the rest of our build. Again, this weapon has no skill listed for its Ash of War, allowing us to utilize the right hand moveset to its fullest. Taking a look over at our armor, you can see we're using the Great Helm along with the chest, gauntlets, and greaves from the Haligtree Knight set. I mainly use this set for the Paladin aesthetic, however, you can certainly substitute whatever you like to fit your personal taste. A good alternative set is to look at the Lindell Knight Armor set. This gear has the exact same weight as the Haligtree set, but has more of a goldish tint. As far as where to find these pieces, the Great Helm can be purchased from the merchant in Caelid near the southern Aeonia Swamp Bank site of Grace. The rest of the Haligtree Knight set can be farmed from the Haligtree Knights in the Haligtree. I recommend farming the same guy that drops the Crest Greatshield, as he will drop both the armor and the shield. The talismans for this build signify exactly what this build is all about. Starting off, we have the Great Jar's Arsenal that raises maximum equipment load by 19%. This talisman is given to the player for completing the Great Jar's challenge of defeating 3 NPC duelists in the Dragon Barrow North Caelid. Next we have the Shard of Alexander. This talisman boosts the attack power of skills by 15%. This comes with great help to our Ashes of War, Sacred Blade, and Sword Dance. The Shard of Alexander is given to the player by Iron Fist Alexander after completing his quest line. The Curved Sword Talisman increases the guard counter damage by 20%. This makes our guard counters significantly more viable option for damage against enemies. The Curved Sword Talisman can be found relatively early in the game while venturing through Stormveil Castle. Last but certainly not least, we're using the Greatshield Talisman. The Greatshield Talisman reduces the stamina damage taken while blocking by 20%. This highly encourages a tanky style gameplay and also synergizes quite well with the Curved Sword Talisman. The Greatshield talisman can be found in a carriage chest east of the Erdtree Gazing Hill site of grace. When selecting incantations for a Holy Knight Paladin, I wanted protections, heals, and buffs that offer the most utility. The first incantation is Golden Vow. This incantation requires 25 faith in order to cast. Golden Vow provides an 80-second buff that increases damage by 15% and all damage negation by 10% for your character as well as allies. This incantation can be found on the Corpse Stench Shack in Mount Gelmir. The next incantation we're using is the Order's Blade. This incantation requires 13 intelligence and 13 faith in order to cast. The Order's Blade buffs the weapon with holy attack power for 90 seconds. This incantation can be purchased from D, Hunter of the Dead, for 3,000 rooms, or from the Twin Maiden Husk at the Round Table Hold after giving them D's Bell Bearing. Next we have Great Heal. This incantation requires 15 faith in order to cast. This incantation restores health to both you and your allies. It can be purchased from Brother Korn for 9,000 runes after he moves to the Altus Plateau. The last incantation on this build is the Blessing of the Erdtree. This incantation requires 38 faith in order to cast. This incantation provides a blessing for you and your allies that regenerates 12 HP per second for 90 seconds. This incantation can be found at the Queen's Bedchamber in Lindell Royal Capital. For our Wondrous Physic, we're using the combination of the Holy Shrouding Crack tier and the Stonebarb Crack tier. The Holy Shrouding Crack tier temporarily boosts holy attacks by 20% for 3 minutes. This synergizes with both the Sacred Blade Ash of War and the Order's Blade incantation. The Holy Shrouding Crack tier is dropped by the Erdtree avatar in the northeastern part of Liurnia of the Lakes. The Stonebarb Crack tier gives our character a buff for 30 seconds, allowing us to cause 30% extra stance damage to enemies and 30% extra stamina damage to blocking enemies. I really like this crack tier as it allows us to easily block incoming attacks, follow up with a guard counter, and most likely break the enemy stance, allowing for an easy critical riposte. I feel like this has allowed me to dominate and dictate the flow of mini boss encounters right from the start. If you're looking at the stats page, you can see the breakdown of the build. We're level 125 with 40 vigor, 14 mind, 36 endurance, 40 strength, 11 dexterity, 13 intelligence, 40 faith, and 10 arcane. These stats meet all the minimum base stat requirements for our gear and provide proper scaling to make this build effective. I greatly appreciate you clicking on the video, it really means the most. Please take a second and click that like and subscribe button if you haven't already done so for more Elden Ring content, and I hope to see you all in the next video.